Okay, welcome back to the Investigative Journal on this August 4th, 2016 day on our calendar. I'm your host, Greg Anthony, and you're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. You can listen to my show every evening from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's on FirstAmendmentRadio.com Pacific Time, Monday through Friday. They also play the show, Thank You, First Amendment, at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, Monday through Friday. And if you cannot go to those two shows, I really don't understand why, because don't you get a little tired of listening to the mainstream media and all the alternative media talking about the same old stuff, never coming up with any solutions? Well, here you're going to get the solutions. Here you're going to get the unabashed truth. That's why we're called the alternative to the alternative to the alternative to the alternative, and you can go on and on and on. News. Now, this is part 3 of what I call the best off-Broadway theatrical play ever performed in the history of the world. And what might that be, you ask? The 2016 presidential elections. Okay, I'm going to get into that in a minute, but let me just set the record straight here. I played part 1 and part 2. That was, Tuesday and Wednesday. Today's part 3 on a Thursday. Tomorrow, I am going to bring on Bert Krantz of the Olamo Ministry, a Christian ministry that has been persecuted by what I have called the Vatican-led New World Order for I don't know how long now. I can remember learning about it when I was a journalist in the 80s, living in Rome, and boy, I've been trying to get this message across ever since, in every way possible known to man. But it doesn't seem to resonate with the masses. So tomorrow, we're going to have Bert Krantz on, talking about the Olamo Ministry and how they've been persecuted. And I want to bring this story back to you because it's one of the offshoots of what I call the biggest off-Broadway theatrical play, the 2016 presidential elections, the main show, the huge show, the big show. And if you are old as I am, you'll remember a guy by the name of Ed Sullivan who said that. The big show. But anyway, many of you millennials don't recall that. I'm going to get to the millennials in a minute. But anyway, so I'm going to suspend part, I'm going to do 3 parts this week, and then let me explain so you know how to catch me on this, on part 4, 5, and 6. On tomorrow, Bert Krantz, the Olamo Ministry, important story. Then Monday, I'm bringing back Leo Zagami from Rome, another huge story. What I consider to be one of the biggest sitcoms, one of the offshoots, the biggest offshoot, one of the biggest offshoot now episodes of what I call just pure Hollywood in the political stage, and that's in Turkey, the coup in Turkey, and how it really talks about Islamic fundamentalism here in America, how it's being brought in here not only with swords and cutting people's heads off, but with charter schools and institutions that are run. Did you know that this guy that the Edgerton, who now is the asking for Fethullah Gulen to be sent back to Turkey because he's saying that Edgerton was responsible for the coup that almost killed him and wanted to destabilize Turkey. Well, Gulen, we talked about that last Monday with Leo Zagami about who he really is. He's an Islamic radical, and he has over 140 charter schools here that are paid by U.S. tax dollars. Right. And Leo says they're not just teaching moderate Islam. This goes way deeper. And Leo understood that because I remember talking to him in 2008 when he learned about the Gulen movement in Norway. And that's a huge story. And what they were doing, what he was doing back then in all of Europe, basically presenting caliphate. Wow, number of stories. There's so many great offshoot stories going on now. And what I call them is episodes, kind of like you do a pilot like the presidential elections. And then off that, there's all these sitcoms that come off of that. And I'll explain that later. But one of the biggest ones just happened yesterday, and I think you have to remember, Obama just 4 hostages from Iran were just released, but Obama, without Congress knowing about it, without the American people knowing about it until the Wall Street Journal reported on it yesterday, sent over $400 million, but not in a bank wire transfer to the government of Iran. He sent it in the middle of the night on a chartered aircraft, and it was all in bills. It was taken on crates in euros and Swiss francs and given to those people in cash. Now, Iran says it was a ransom payment, which is against our government policy. And guess what the Obama administration said? Well, it was their money. We owed it to them from 1976 when Iran gave us $400 million for arms that we were going to send back military equipment. Why wouldn't we be doing that anyway? During Reagan's period, and then the Shah was overthrown, so we kept their money, and we want to release it now. Wow, now, can you understand? He is nothing more than a plant creating terrorism, because where are those dollar bills going? Where are all those bills going? It's not going to go for infrastructure in Iran. It's going to go to Hamas. It's going to go to all the terrorist groups that are actually killing Americans and Christians. And he said, well, that's going to save the American people a lot of money. And I said, why? And you know what he says? He says that there's a case in The Hague where Iran's asking for the $400 million, and he fears that The Hague will make a $10 billion settlement. Now, who cares about what The Hague says? We do not have to pay Iran a penny. Now, in fact, the courts of the United States have already ruled that the victims of Iranian terror are owed billions of dollars by the Iran government. Why don't we take that $400 million and give it to them? But that's just the tip of the iceberg here. He wants to give them a total of $1.6 billion. On top of the $150 billion they gave them in this crazy Iranian nuke deal. Wow, what an offshoot episode. And it shows you how our main actor, Obama, who's actually acting in the presidential elections as one of the main characters, is now spinning off his own little sitcom here, and the American people are going to buy it hook, line, and sinker. Like I told you, it is not the real world. They're presenting a fiction. You're turning it into reality. But this story is huge. And remember, I'm looking at it through a different prism here. Looking at it not as its reality, as it's the fiction they're bringing to us. This thing has been written. The script has been written. So you check out those 2 episodes of these 2 little sitcoms coming off of the major show here, the big show, as Ed Sullivan would say, the 2016 presidential election. So let's get back to that. Okay. Because I enjoy so much doing shows like this. Because my goal here, and I've talked about this many, many times, I don't want to just preach to the choir. There's so many people that that listen to my show, and it's a very small group compared to the people of the world who are buying this whole thing as reality. It's a very small group, and they understand it quite well. Probably better, many of them better than I do. And there have been books written about it. There's countless YouTubes you see, but you see the main people that are buying the other show, which is actually fiction. Yours may be the truth. You see, it's all upside down. The masses look at you and they go, that's fiction. That can't be true. And then they believe these actors like Obama, Clinton's, these are major players for a while now. They've been, isn't it interesting? We'll get to all these little nuances of this huge presidential election show, the best off-Broadway theater play I have ever seen this year. And they do it every 4 years, and everyone seems to get a little bit better. I got to hand it to them. They're creating a lot of interest this year, and they're going to get a big box office return, let me tell you that. So anyway, what I'm getting at is I've tried for many years to get this point across. I used to do on my old shows, these fake interviews where George Bush would be sitting with the Black Pope in the little tunnel between Georgetown University and the White House. And that didn't seem to, a few people listened to it, didn't go over well. Well, anyway, my idea has always been to present this the way it really is. It's a Hollywood play. It's a movie. It's nothing more than sitting down, watching, one of the best Hollywood movies ever produced, but it's done in the political stage. It's actually a reality show. And, I thought maybe if I presented it this way, I know there's so many couch potatoes, so many millennials that are stuck on their computers that are looking at, take a little bit of time away from Pokemon Go, will you? And this show's even better. We got all these people in virtual reality. We got all these people watching movies. They watch the Kardashians. They're watching all these reality shows. This is the best one going. But the only difference is the real outcome of this. Now, when you watch a Hollywood movie, go to some of these movies that are action movies with Cruise and Matt Damon and all. A lot of people are getting blown away, but not really, right? That's just Hollywood. But in this show, people are actually dying. People are actually going hungry. We got veterans in the street. Did you realize that there's over 20 veterans a day that are committing suicide? Because we can't even give our veterans care. They spent $10 million this year on some rock to put in front of a hospital. But yet, they can't take care of the veterans that are going there. They're standing in line for days. Now, why don't we give that $400 million to them? But that's just a part of the play they're writing. Don't you get it? This has all been scripted. But the only difference is you're falling for it, and people actually die. People actually go hungry. Look at the homeless population we have now. This is unacceptable in this country, but that's the way they want it. The reality here is that your belief in this idea that what they're presenting in the presidential election big show is actually real. But you turn it into reality when you believe them. If you didn't believe it, it wouldn't be real. And we wouldn't have these problems because we would get to the bottom of every one of the things that they're talking about that they never really tell you the truth about. But that's their world, the fantasy world. So, since this is part 3 of what I call the best off-Broadway theatrical play ever performed in history, this presidential 2016 election, and since most Americans relate, now listen to this, to television and the cinema, actually more than a theater play, ask yourself, when's the last time you went to a theater play? How many people really go? Why don't we call this thing the 2016 presidential election big blockbuster political movie, which spawns off this movie a whole thousands and thousands of spin-off television sitcoms and movies, a couple of which I just presented. The sitcom fake story that it's a real story, but man, it is fiction. It shouldn't even be there. But all of these spin-offs off of this presidential election are just something more of the same fantasy. This whole idea that when Obama gave $400 million in bills, like a drug cartel would do it, is just something that this thing has been scripted. They've been planning this out for years. It's all written. The whole thing is scripted. And I want to spend a little bit of time talking about how they scripted, who the writers are of this great movie, this great fantasy they present us. And I started to do that in part 1. And the two things I want to do today, I'll really get into that subject. And then secondly, present to you a little bit that you don't know about one of the main actors. Now, we presented the Obama Connect. Now, there's 3 main actors in this year's movie, presidential election movie. It's Obama, who's coming back for not a cameo appearance. He's coming back. He starred in this for the last 2 big shows, and he's coming back for a 3rd performance. And that's kind of unusual because usually the outgoing president never comes back for the 3rd one, maybe a cameo appearance, but he's a major player here. And there's a reason that he is one of the main actors, given the right to really get on the stage again. And, by 8 years, you kind of get sick of this actor, don't you? Well, the other main actor is the Democratic nominee, which is the first woman, if you want to call her a woman. Some have called her a witch. Some have called her many other names. But she's a far cry from being a great representative of what a real good woman is in this country. She's depicted on the stage as a liar, which that's her role. She's a liar, a thief, and a political insider that's been playing this part for over 40 years. So basically, what she is kind of like Betty Davis coming back after her main performance in the 1930s, and now Betty Davis comes out and is doing this old act again and again and again. And although you like Betty Davis, in the case of Hillary Clinton, she doesn't have any of the qualities of Betty Davis. She doesn't have her eyes, for one. Two, doesn't have her charisma, doesn't have her speaking voice, doesn't have her basic attention. When you see Betty Davis, you're drawn to watch her, right? This woman, you just want to shut the TV set off and say, wow, I can't listen to that voice anymore. But they bring back this old hag actress to play this part, to be the president, the first woman, and I, for all of the life of me, cannot figure out why they couldn't find a better one, a better actress. I mean, how many people can audition for this part, as I want to know. You know, I could, I wonder what the auditions were really like and why they chose her. And I told you why yesterday. She is sucking up to the writers and the producers and the directors of this big, huge movie. That's just the way they do it in Hollywood. She's doing that. She's sucked up to them, and she's been given this big role to play now. The first woman president in the history of this republic. Big starring role. What other role? I mean, and she's going to get paid pretty well. Her contract, man, the money she's made off of this, just ask her. The Clinton Foundation, she gets $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 every time she speaks from Wall Street. Now, can you believe that's little sitcom they putting on us? Who would want to listen to her for an hour, and why would you pay her $300,000? Could it be for influence? Could it be that, favors? Of course. That's another show they put on for you. But anyway, they're bringing back this old hag actress, and they had to bring Obama back because she can't handle the stage very well. You listen to her. She made a big mistake yesterday in one of her, this is a big show, and she's on the stage yesterday, and she actually said, she's getting into a big rant, she goes, I am going to raise the taxes for the middle class, when she meant she was going to decrease the taxes for the middle class. Now, this is what I mean. She can't even read the script. How can you have somebody like that? So they had to bring Obama back to kind of like bolster her. He's a pretty good speaker. You got to give him that. He's actually pretty good. And, I think he'd make a pretty good stand-up comic when he gets out of the White House. He's actually pretty sharp on his feet, and you don't mind listening to him. Although lately, though, I've noticed he has really taken a long time to say things. When he first became this first actor president, you know what? He was talking pretty quick. Now he's like, get the words out, Barack. Get your sentence out. I know you got gray hair now, but God, why don't they do better makeup for these people? I mean, they can do wonders in Hollywood. He doesn't have to have gray hair. Come on, just put a little bit of that Grecian formula on, you'll look great. They shouldn't let the main actor go to hell like that. But anyway, that's Barack, and he's got to come back as the main actor in this. Like I said, let's call it a blockbuster movie, so it relates more to the millennials, because outside of the elite millennials who may take in a Broadway play, there's very few that go to theater anymore. Prefer to sit on the television, sit on the couch, watch it on their iPads or whatever they got. So anyway, let's call it that, because they'll appeal to the movie, won't they? Many are turned off by politics. I'm saying, why be turned off? This is a great movie to watch. And when you take that attitude, you can actually have some fun with it. And also get your point across. Because the major point is, when you watch a movie, you really want to know who wrote this darn thing. Don't you? I mean, I do. I mean, I've watched some really good Hollywood movies, and I'm always wondering, who wrote that screenplay was really good. So I'm presenting you the writers of this play, or this movie. It's the Jesuit Order at Georgetown University. And you say, who the heck are they? Well, that's something you got to read about. But anyway, let me tell you how I explain them to you, millennials and others, that have not really understood the truth about these people and how good of writers they really are. They have decided long, long ago to write the screenplay for the world. Right. They've decided to sit down through all of their connections, going back, and I like to start at the Protestant Reformation in the 1500s, because you can go back farther than that. And there were other people that kind of morphed into the Jesuit order, but these guys became the military arm. They became the great educators. Look at what they tell you. They're great writers. They're all over the place. They're in NASA. These guys, they're lawyers. They're doctors. Georgetown University, right next to the White House, the first Catholic university in America. This is what they decided years ago. They're going to write the script of the world. And then, in advance, what they do is they, just like any good Hollywood movie, folks, you write the script, and then you get the actors to read it, and you play it out. So they write out what's going to happen, then they play it out. And they have a lot of, these guys are adept at putting together a great plot. They got all the actors working. They got wars, people fighting against each other. They got sex. They got perversion. They got satanic worshiping. They got everything in this play. They got political intrigue. They got people dying in the streets, actually dying in the streets. They've created episodes of genocide where, one of their big shows was World War II, how they did that one. And when you see all the people that actually died, one of their greatest death scenes was how they put all these Jews in these ovens who basically, most people don't know this, but they were alive when they went in there, used as human sacrifices. Most people think they were killed in the gas chamber. No, they were just knocked out, put in there and killed. That was one of the great scenes of all time, wasn't it? From the standpoint of watching this, wow, how could they do this? They even put their own priests in there to kill them too. And that happened in the other scene they did in the genocides in Croatia. And they're doing the same thing today. They write these things. They got people that write them quite well, great script writers. Then they got to find the actors. And boy, could we have fun with this, right? And I've had fun with it in the past. Because it seems like if you really try to get serious with people on this subject, they really don't believe you. They say that's impossible. Well, I'm saying it's a fantasy. It is possible. You want to look at it from the point of view of the way it really is. You like movies. You like sitting there and watch a good Hollywood blockbuster killing field movie. You got it right here. And maybe then these millennials and all these people that doubt, some of the really good script writers on the other side who've tried to get their episodes in, like me, trying to get the story, the real story about these guys. Get it. Boy, if that was in there. If the real story about the Jesuits was told, if it was told about how they control our political and our, both domestic and foreign policies, wouldn't that make a great episode? But every time I submit that, it gets turned away. It doesn't even get looked at. And I've talked to other writers who have tried to get this story into their movie, and we can't do it. And I'm going to come back in the second half hour and tell you why we can't get our scripts ever to be produced in these Hollywood movies. It's a real interesting. I think it's really, we should take this to the screenwriters union in Hollywood and scream bloody murder here. Hey, this is really not fair. You're against getting these stories in. We need our story told too. That's America, right? We'll be back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, 1-800-375-4188.
Okay, we are back for the second half hour of the Investigative Journal on this August 4th, 2016 day on our calendar. We're discussing and talking about the biggest show on earth, the 2016 presidential election, and talking about how it really is nothing more than a political off-Broadway production. Call it a blockbuster political movie. But when I say it's fantasy, I mean that. And so I look at it out of that prism. It's the same way I'd look at a Hollywood movie. I look at the credits. I look at basically the title. I look at who are the starring actors, who's the supporting actors, who are all the bit players, the day player. Do you know what a day player is? Well, if you haven't been around Hollywood, that's somebody who comes in for a day, a short segment in the sitcom, or in the movie it'd be a short role. And day players. Then you got your extras. And boy, that's an interesting aspect. We are the extras. All of us, me, you, and all of us that aren't in the big club. We're the extras. That's about all we'll ever get. You try to get a leading role in this movie, forget about it. Now, how do you get a leading role in Hollywood? Let's go over that. You got to suck up to the producer, the director, etc., etc., and it's not just your talent. Then you got to be politically correct in that world. Most of them are all these liberals that support all kinds of things, and if you don't do that in Hollywood, plus you got to shut up about the scriptwriters in the big movies, like what I'm talking about here. In those Hollywood movies, you don't care. Those are all B movies, I call them. The A movie is the political scenes like I'm talking about here, the blockbuster political movies, all the things you see play out in the real world, that's really the A movies. The B movies are all the ones you see in Hollywood. The C movies are what the Hollywood people call B movies. So just move up on the ladder of the most important movies, the ones that actually play out in real life. And the big show now is the 2016 presidential election, and every 4 years they give you another one. It's kind of a sequel. And this sequel this year is even better. So we concentrate, just like we do, on the plot. What's the plot? And we'll start there. And this year it is billed as the most important movie, blockbuster, political movie ever presented. Change. We got to change. The world is going to hell in a handbasket. They've written about that before. You can talk about all the things. The decline in America infrastructure, another episode they present. The rise of ISIS and terrorism. Oh, what else? The job loss. All of the plants and all of our factories going overseas. China on our backs. Russia, the whole world. ISIS all over They've created quite an interesting movie, haven't they? I mean, this thing's got every. Then we look at the world of pedophilia in the Catholic Church, and this plot thickens. Where is it going? Some people say the movie's been written. The advance writings, the script has been written all the way out to a one world order, one world government where there's no borders. America is no longer the same. A one world currency, a one world religion. The whole thing is just basically control. That's where some people say it's been written that way. But as you know, unless you really get inside the script writers of this biggest Hollywood movie, and I call it the political movie. Let's differentiate from Hollywood so we don't get confused. To really get in there to find out what they wrote, how they're planning this out, that's difficult because they got it pretty well. It's like a secret they don't want to give you. Just like Hollywood though, when you try to find out, first of all, Hollywood prepares a movie and they're writing it, what's his name? Remember, I can't think of the big directors. It doesn't matter who they are. They're writing a big movie and they're writing the script and they're making changes every day. They may even do it once and change the ending. Who knows? But you never find out about it because if you did, you wouldn't go see the movie, right? Well, if we found out about the real movie here, the big blockbuster movie that's playing out in your world every day, we wouldn't even want to wake up and go to it either. So we got to get up and wonder, what are they going to do? What are these script writers going to write? Are they going to end the world tomorrow? Are they going to let it go? Are they going to let the liberals win? Are they going to let the conservative win? Will socialism take over America? Will neo-fascism come in the form of right-wing fascism? Will there be another race war? All of these things have been scripted out, but they ain't going to tell you, because otherwise you wouldn't want to get up and talk about it. You already know what the ending is. However, everybody tries to put in their 2 cents about that ending, right? Oh, sure. And that's the way it goes. They got you. They got you hooked. But the one thing I want to explain, the one thing that's important, is if you look at it through the prism that I'm looking at it, as pure fantasy, pure entertainment, it somehow has a way of getting through to people, doesn't it? More Americans may get it because they like that. Everybody criticizes America for watching too many movies. Well, since you're watching so many, why don't you watch the real one here and really understand not only the plot, but who are the guys who write it, why they put the main actors into it, how these main actors and even the supporting actors and all these other people really get their parts to play on this big, huge, movie called the presidential elections. Then, think of this. After that movie's over in November and it's played out, all of the sitcoms start, all of the episodes start coming out again, just like they do in Hollywood. Spin-offs. You remember, what was the movie? You get a good sitcom, then all of a sudden there's spin-offs off that sitcom. And boy, and this movie creates more spin-offs than you'll ever want to know. In fact, even while the movie's being played out daily here, That's what makes this movie kind of nice. They don't just run it one day, so you go to 3 hours and watch the presidential elections. They draw this thing out for months. Imagine the money they're making at the box office for this. So they have a unique way of presenting it. But they're spinning off sitcoms as we speak today. And all of those stories you see are nothing more than more of their fantasy. So, realizing that, wouldn't it be fun to kind of figure out, when I go to see a good movie, I want to, who wrote that? And I look in the credits and I start reading about them. And I want to know everything about that writer. Because, man, he's pretty good. And I want to know who directed it. Steven Spielberg, what's his history? Where's he from? You always see him on TV. Okay, Al Pacino, what's he all about? All these things you want to know. What's the plot all about? Where'd he get the ideas? So I do the same thing with this big movie. I want to know first, okay, what have they done in the past? Who are these writers first? And I say the main writing comes from Georgetown and Borgo Santo Spirito Cinque in Rome, and all of the Jesuit orders, writers, the guys who work for them, and all of the ones that, guys who work in the Jesuit order and all of their underlings who are helping put this script together. And then I say, well, wow, this is a good movie. And how can, okay, let me break in here real quick. I may not get, yesterday we did Barack Obama, and what I'm doing is giving you a background on the main actors first, and all I'm doing is connecting the dots between them and the writers and the producers and the directors of the movie so that you can see how they got their main role, see the favoritism. And that's not good in the Actors Guild either. We should all have the same opportunity to be the main actors in this movie, or at least audition. But when they script it, they already know who they've already got their homework done. These guys got the parts even before the movie comes out. There's no auditions here. So anyway, I did Obama, and so all we do is connect what Obama's connections are to the Jesuits. Now you can go and do that yourself. You can also look at all his other connections on the internet, easy to find now, whether he's an American citizen, blah, blah, blah. And I was going to do that today with Hillary, but I decided first to do it with Trump, Donald Trump, because not that many people know about his background, although he's been on reality TV for years. I'm going to see if he has any Jesuit connections. And then we'll do Hillary, the old actress. Don's kind of new on this scene. This is his first time in a huge starring role in the biggest movie ever produced. He's had some other bit parts in Hollywood, the B movies in Hollywood. This is the A movie. So he's made it to the big time, and we're going to get to know him. You can look him up, find out everything you want to know about him, but I will present the connections to the writers and to the producers who are in Rome, and the directors of this movie, and we'll piece that together, and that'd be an interesting little journey. Then we'll do the old hag actress. We all know about Hillary. She's been around for 40 years, started her movie career as the First Lady of the United States under her, one of the biggest stars ever, Bill Clinton. He was one of the best sharp-speaking, he could parse the word is like nobody else, and go back and watch some of his performances. And he came out for a little cameo at the DNC convention. And the old dog still can bark. Let me tell you that. He's 70, but he still puts on a good show. You got to give him that. But he's not playing a main role anymore. He's kind of sitting back collecting all his money from the Clinton Foundation, who, by the way, collects money all over the world, supposedly for charitable purposes. But some people who have tried to figure out what that is, looking behind the scenes of this episode of their big movie, their sitcom, and say that only in the writing of this script, they only are paying 10% to the actual charitable donations that they say, and the 90% is going to what they call administrative costs. Wow, what's that? Whew, that's a good episode. They're writing that good. Now, anyway, here we go. So I'm going to get to probably Trump. I don't know if I'll have time today because we're already 12 minutes into part 3, and I'm trying to really get you to listen to this, get more people involved, the millennials, all the people that think that this is really reality, to realize it's a movie. And then from there, try to really get to the bottom of who wrote it, what's the plot, who are the directors. And so the writers, to me, are the key. And so we talked about that. Oh, and I wanted to say this. So I am going to do part 4, 5, and 6 Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of next week. As tomorrow I want to bring on Bert Krantz of the Alamo Ministry, a great story that needs to be told, and I want to keep that in the news. And then Monday we're going to go again to Rome to do Leo Zagami and talk about this huge episode that's going on now. They're spinning off a sitcom already on Turkey, the coup in Turkey. And this is a good one they wrote. This one, man, will keep your interest. And I hope you watch how we say it. And, go to your own channels and watch these. But look at it through the prism of fantasy for a while instead of reality. Because I'm going to explain in another episode how this really works. And boy, once you get that, you're going to have a big laugh at yourself, how you've been deceived. And you're going to laugh your way all the way to the truth. I promise you that. Laughing your way all the way to the truth. So, we're getting back to the writers, who interest me a lot. Even when I watch a movie, I want to know who wrote that. That's a good script. That's in Hollywood, the B movies. Now, the A movies, who writes these? Now, my research, and the research of many who've looked into this, they like to keep themselves unknown, and they don't put a credit at the end of the elections. This movie written by Georgetown University writer, this written by Jesuit priest. They don't like to do that, and I've always wondered why. Why not take credit for your work? But for some reason, I guess they're a bunch of humble guys. They have humility. They don't want to take credit for it, and you got to hand it to them. If it was me, if I ever got an episode into their movie regarding, the real truth behind World War II, how Pope Pius XII was involved with Hitler, I would put my name on it. Written by Greg Anthony Szymanski. Yes, I want my whole name there. I want everybody to know. But, I'm not as humble as these guys. These guys have humility out the yin-yang. Because they don't even want you to know who wrote it. So, being a little bit of a nosy guy, being a journalist, I had to find out, and I found out it's all these guys working with the Jesuit order, the Catholic Church, again doing their service for mankind. And I find out that the one they're writing this year is so interesting because they're bringing almost an end times philosophy here. They're bringing so much chaos into this story now that it's really getting interesting. The only thing I'm sad about is that a lot of their offshoot sitcoms that are coming off, a lot of people are dying. A lot of people are getting, in fact, in Sudan now, one of their other movies they're writing, a whole bunch of people may be genocided just like they were in Rwanda. And what about all the Christians now being rounded up in Nigeria? How come no Christians ever, they, in their movie, in their script, they don't allow Christians, for example, I was looking at all the, part of their movie now is bringing all these illegal aliens all over the world into the countries like in Europe and America. And the ones that came to America, there were like 7,000 of them, and they were no Christians. And there are Christians in those countries, like Syria and all those other places. How come no Christians come here? It's all Muslims. That's what they're writing. And I looked into that at one point, and that's an interesting scenario that they've written into the script. So the Jesuits are busy. This is one of their better movies. Let me tell you that. They got it really now captivating a lot of people. And they've selected, you got to start out with the main actors here. They've selected a good trio to really keep your interest. And we're going to get into their backgrounds a little bit more, only from the idea of how they're connected to the writers here and the producers and the directors, like I said. But, okay, a little bit more on the writers. I said, boy, anybody that could write what they're doing now has to have experience at this. I mean, this can't be they're not just a one-hit wonder here. They had to be pretty good at what they're doing, right? So I checked it out, and I found out they've been behind most every blockbuster political election for as far back as I can go. Now, the farther back you go, the harder it is to find out. And the cruder they did, I mean, when you start the advent of TV with John Kennedy and all of the scripts they were writing back then, made it so easy for them. They saw how, boy, this really opens up our world here. We can really reach a lot of people, and we've got to get good at, so they've been really good at writing these, even better since the 60s. But prior to that, they were doing the same thing, but, they had to rely on, well, probably more of a theatrical world. So if you're involved in, you know what vaudeville is, back in our time before TV, and then going way back, they, remember the big Shakespearean theaters and all this kind of stuff. They were involved in writing all this stuff too. So they've been writing, these guys, the same organization, passing it down through the centuries to their followers. They've been doing this since, well, I'm only going to start in the 1500s when this organization was created. And they've now become the great educators, the great writers, they're doing a wonderful job at presenting this fiction to us. But the idea of what they're doing has an interesting twist. Because I wondered, because they've kept this to, why are they the only ones writing this? That doesn't seem fair. Doesn't everybody have an opportunity to be a part of this, to write? I know a lot of good writers that aren't Jesuits that never get their story in, and I think that's the way it was in the old days. And that's kind of I think that is very unfair. I think it's against our First Amendment rights here, and it's actually keeping me from having a job, because I think some of my episodes are very good, but I can't get them in. They keep getting turned down, every one I send in. And the real thread here I found out is that they've depicted their organization. You see, they're not like screenwriters. They're a huge organization, but writing and revising history, I say that not in jest, is part of what they do. So I said, well, if there's such this gargantuan organization connected to the Vatican and all this money and all, how do they write about themselves? They always put themselves in a pretty good light. And I said, well, that's weird. Sure, if I was involved in an organization, I would do the same thing. I'd make my organization look good, right? But is that the truth? Thus, the fantasy world they've created. So what I found out over the years is every writer that tried to really tell the story of why these events were taking place, how they actually took place, they could never get their story in. It was always discredited. Many of the people that tried to get their story in, telling you what happened to the Protestant Reformation, what happened to why the Jesuit order, the same group, was thrown out of most every country in Europe, why they've tried to overthrow governments, all this stuff. When people try to say, well, how did this happen? And if it went against what the Jesuits and their followers, who are now in the Obama administration, Clinton, the rest of them, were up to, they could never get their story in. Many of them were even killed, really killed. So I started to say to myself, wow, there's a whole big side of this story. This movie has never been told. And let's try to get it into this movie. Because the only way I believe that the masses will believe what I'm saying is if they think it's a fantasy. But it has to be in the A movie. I can't present it in the internet format. I will get very few people. But that's not bad. Many people know what I'm talking about. But to get it even in a Hollywood B movie is impossible. They get theirs in. Remember Angels and Demons and all the movies about the Vatican? That wasn't the story I want to know, because I found out a little different angle. But that couldn't make it even there. So how am I ever going to get my script written in the big A political movie here, the American movie, the big story? I said, they have a closed group. They have a club. And if you don't suck up to them and tell their story the way they want it, you're not going to get your movie in. Now, that doesn't seem to be right. So thus, we have a fantasy. We're not being told the whole story. And I think if we really want to have a good movie here, a good political movie, the things they're leaving out are the best part. In most every sitcom I've seen, they've spun off for years, hundreds of, years. Let's just go from World War II. The best parts are left out. So I say, why not try to get them in? Now, I tried that. And I got contacted once by a man who was the godson of Father Marcinkus, who was the head of the Vatican Bank. Now, I used to cover him when I was in Rome a little bit, and he was involved in all these scandals. Wow, what a story that was. They play this worldwide. This isn't just an American movie here. They've got it in all languages. And when he was airlifted out of the Vatican and put into a monastery in Phoenix and accused of banking fraud and even murder, I happened to try to revive that story to get my episode in, and couldn't do it. So I was contacted by his godson, and he said, Greg, nobody's ever going to listen to you. Why don't you be smart? Just get back into entertainment. You have a great voice. You can make a lot of money. Why are you harping on this story? You know the story will never be able to get in. And if it gets in, all of the people that watch this movie won't believe it anyway. So I figured the reason it doesn't get in is because it would completely destroy what these writers have been doing for hundreds of years. And they would have to go back and rewrite what they've already rewritten in history. They would have to revise what they've revised and get to this side of the story, which would change everything. Change every one of their big shows they've done in the political scheme here. Change everything. So we're going to get into Trump next week, who he really is. And I hope you enjoyed part 3. We'll be back tomorrow with another show, but back Tuesday with part 4. See you later.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.